Uh, Not last week, Karen taught, and then the week before that, I started in just reading through the story of Nehemiah, and like to pick back up from there again where we left off, and continue to read about Nehemiah. And so as we're reading about that, going through the slides, the scripture should be there on the slide. After we get through the story and some of the various things there this week, I hope. Next week, we'll probably take time to go through the gates and the meaning and the messages that you can get from the various gates that they repaired. I'll save it for the last. And so we pick back up to where we had left off, and Nehemiah has gone to the king, and the king has given him leave. And so here in chapter 5, verse 14, let's read what it says. Moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year until the 32nd year of King Artaxerxes, 12 years, neither I nor my brothers ate the governor's provisions. So if there was an allotment that was given him, and those that were with him to eat when he got there in Judah, that would have been common. He refused to take it. In other words, I'm going to work without pay, basically. You don't see that very often when somebody refuses their salary and the benefits to their salary, but that's basically what has happened here. Chapter 13, and I know we'll jump back and forth, but there's a reason to it, so just stick with it. But during all this time I was not in Jerusalem, so this is moving down the line a little bit. For in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, I had returned to the king. Then after certain days I obtained leave from the king. And so there were times when he traveled back and forth, as you can tell by the verse here, and so by that verse. And so, but when he did get there and he's getting settled and he's getting his boots on the ground, if you will, he had Sanballat, Tobias, and Geshem, I suppose. They're ready to rise up and stop him. They're leaders that are there in the area, but they are non-Jewish leaders. And so they basically didn't want to see them come together, want them, Jerusalem, and to stay in ruins, wanted it to be, there are times when there are people oppose us, we don't realize that they're opposing us. Sometimes there's something going on in the background that nobody else can see. I think Nick had mentioned about how they were trying to get something done, and someone was opposing them while he was signing the release. And so we never know what might be blocking us and what might be in the way. But if we're doing the work of the Lord, yes, we can get frustrated, and yes, we can get picked on, but yet we can keep on going, trusting God's got a plan in place. So in Nehemiah 2, it says in verse 10, it says, when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard of it, they were deeply disturbed that a man had come to seek the well-being of the children of Israel. It's kind of sad. I mean, just very, very sad that somebody would not want someone else to prosper, not someone else to do well, or at least to improve. It's odd. You ever seen somebody sabotage somebody else, trying to make them look bad? It's a sad state of being that someone has a warped sense of thinking. But here we see it displayed in Nehemiah's story. And so it says, and I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me, and also the king's words that he had spoken to me. And so he wasn't deterred. He's going to let the word out, hey, this is a God thing. God is doing this. God is directing me, and I'm putting this on the shoulders of God while I'm here, and so you just have to deal with it, however it is. And it seemed like it's odd to me that somebody tells you that, oh, God told you that. It seemed like they would just step back. Oh, okay, well, if God's for this, let's just see if He is or not, and just let you go. Because if there's one person you don't want, or one deity you don't want to mess with, is God. But nonetheless, some people are kind of hard-headed. And then he said, so they said, let us rise up and build, when they set their hand to do this good work. This is the part that seems to be the catalyst for moving forward. Notice how this reads. So they said, the people, let us rise up and build. Then they set their hands to this good work. You ever try to get a bunch of people together to do something? And you try to cast your vision. Come on, let's go, let's do that. And you, come on, go with me. And you turn back around and, where'd y'all go? Sometimes it's hard just to cast a vision and get people to grasp it. When I was pastoring at Pine Tops, they had this sign out front that was beautiful church. And they had this temporary sign out in front of this beautiful church right there on the road. And it was black with yellow, looked like a bumblebee out there. And you'd have to go out there and put the letters, and letters would blow off. You go put them up. It was an eyesore. And someone had called me one time and said, hey, I'm going to donate some money for a project you may have there at the church. And first thing I thought of, that sign needs to go. And so one Sunday, and we talked about it when I told them, hey, the money will go for we need a new sign, something that's lit up at night so people can see, and then something that you can let the board down so that when you got the letters on there, they quit blowing off. And so, okay, the money was approved for how the amount what it was. I'd done all the legwork and everything, and I thought, well, I'm going to see how far the people will go, would be interested in doing this. To drive into the church, you had 2 driveways on either side of the church to come in. It was gravel, and you come in, and so I got a hold of George. George was my clerk at the time. I said, George, could you, who does this sign belong to? He said, so-and-so, they let us use it. We're not paying anything for it. And I said, can you get rid of it? Give it back to them, give them a thank you or whatever. And he said, sure, we'll get it moved. And I explained to him what was going on, and he said, that was great, that's wonderful. So we got into the church that Sunday, and I just took an impromptu moment just to ask the people. There was good people there at that church. I said, how many of you noticed anything different when you came onto the property this morning? And the next thing, it started to stir. Did you see anything different? No, I didn't see nothing different. Did you see anything different? Big old black and yellow sign out on the road. How could you miss it being gone? And so anyway, and I said, the sign out front is not there. Did nobody notice that? Well, I didn't notice it. Did anybody notice it? Maybe you ought to go and look. Did anybody notice it was gone? And so I just kept leading on. I said, we could use a new sign. What do y'all think about that? How did you feel about it? Well, that's a good idea. Maybe we ought to get a new sign. And I was just leading one thing after the next, until finally I said, how many of you would be willing to give, to give us for us to get a new sign? You thought the other one was necessary. Did you like the other one out there? I just kept leading on and on and on, and it just was taking a long time to light. It was wet leaves, and I couldn't get it lit, And but see, I had already processed all this stuff, and they hadn't. And so I was way down the road on the whole thing. So finally, after a few minutes of, well, yeah, I think it might be a good idea. Well, well, we could do this, we could do that. And after I felt like I got some semblance of a commitment, I said, well, guess what? We won't have to do anything. It's already been paid for. And so, but the whole thing was for me to learn how hard it was to sell an idea to somebody. Let them get a hold of it. Well, Nehemiah, in this right here, they bought into it because they sensed a sense of ownership and what they could benefit from it. Because how long had they been sitting there with the walls and the gates torn down? It means security. It means putting things back together. The scripture that talks about where there is no vision, the people perish. I've always believed from a pastoral position that you needed to keep a project or something going. It didn't have to be building all the time, but you had to cast some kind of vision to keep people active, because if you didn't have something working, it was kind of like, well, I'm just here, well, there's nothing new going on. But if you weren't pushing towards something and selling a vision, and when the people caught the vision, oh, you didn't have to push, you didn't have to prod. When I would have church meetings and stuff, and if somebody recommended, hey, we ought to do this, I would usually say, that's a good idea. If it was, would you lead us? Mainly because that person had the idea. And more than once I've had, oh no, I just thought it'd be a good idea for somebody else to do, to lead us. I said, no, that was your idea. It's a great idea. You got the drive for it. And so they had a mind to work, and half the battle is won right there when you can get people ready to work, especially when you got work at the end of it. But when Sanballat, as we move on, but when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they laughed at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you are doing? Will you rebel against the king? Once again, trying to throw out some what we call today fake news. If people will listen to us as officials, we'll throw out some fake news. You already told us you got papers, you got the seal from the king, but we're going to sell some fake news if we can. And so I answered them and said to them, the God of heaven himself will prosper us. Therefore we, his servants, will arise and build, but you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem. Well, that's putting them back on their heels a little bit, because they realize how this is going to affect them. So let's go to chapter 4 and verse 1 through 12. Let's read that. Verse 1. Now it came about when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became furious and very angry, and he mocked the Jews. And he spoke in the presence of his brothers and the wealthy people of Samaria and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Are they going to restore the temple for themselves? Can they offer sacrifices? Can they furnish it in a day? Can they revive the stones from the heaps of rubble, even the burned ones? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was near him, and he said, even what they are building, if a fox were to jump on it, it would break their stone wall down. Hear, O our God, how we are an object of contempt. Return their tauntings on their own heads, and turn them into plunder in a land of captivity. Do not forgive their guilt. Do not let their sin be wiped out before you, for they have demoralized the builders, spreading fake news, trying to keep people, questioning what's taking place. So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the repair of the walls of Jerusalem went on, and that the breaches began to be closed, they were very angry. So all of them conspired together to come to fight against Jerusalem and cause confusion in it. That's important that we see what the enemy is out to do. Did you see that last part there? To cause confusion in it. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. But we prayed to our God, and because of them we set up a guard against them day and night. And so in Judah it was said, the strength of the burden bearers is failing, yet there is much rubble, and we ourselves are unable to rebuild the wall. And our enemies said, they will not know or see until we come among them, kill them, and put a stop to the work. And when the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times, they will come up against us from every place where you may turn. So there was a lot taking place. We know that there's a struggle. Sometimes you lose people as you move forward. Sometimes people will get discouraged. But we have to keep on if we know we're sent from God to do a particular work. Now moving forward, of course, if you continue to read in chapter 4, it's very good as we read about what his strategy was. But as we go to chapter 6 here, we jump ahead for a moment. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, that there were no breaks left in it, though at the time I had not hung the doors in the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me harm. I always thought about that particular verse right there, is that whenever they was asking Nehemiah basically said, oh no, I'm not coming down there. Constantly changing tactics to discourage, to trip up, constantly. Doesn't the scripture tell us that we know that Satan goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour? He's testing the limits of things, constantly testing the borders, seeing if something, any way that they can get through or find an opening somewhere, or listening to or looking for someone who has a listening ear that they can pour their vial into and to stop them. So I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? But they sent me this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came to them. For many in Judah were pledged to him, because he was the son-in-law of, you throw that one out yourself, Shechaniah, I guess, the son of Aaron. Somebody else want to try that one? That's a tongue twister. And his son, Jehohanan, I guess, had married the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Barachi? I don't know.
Speaking in tongues.
I'll tell you, well, I'm using my tongue, but I can't tell you exactly where it's headed. Also, they reported his good deeds before me and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. Did you notice what was going on in the first part? Tobiah started writing letters And it says, for many in Judah were pledged to him because of the son-in-law, and then it begins to show there is from the times that he was there was some family connections. He's going to appeal to those. Now, hey, we've been going down here for a long time, and remember that family dinner we had and the connections we had? He starts appealing to the relationships that he's had with people, and the marriages that have taken place. To use that as a means to stop the building. Family ties are strong. Family ties are very strong. And sometimes that might be the thing that stops what's moving forward, and that's what he's appealing to. At the very beginning of all this, it was under the cover of darkness that Nehemiah surveyed the city. He had no idea what he was going to be up against. But he surveys the city and rallies the Jews to rebuild the walls. And he's appealing to family units to work on the area that is just beside your house. He's connecting to the families. Tobiah was trying to use the same thing, appealing to the connections. Whatever, any kind of influence he may have had, he's trying to use that against Nehemiah and against the work of the Lord. And the one thing he could appeal to, he could say, you call yourself the people of God, he's abandoned you. Your city's in ruins. He could use that influence. And who is this fella here? And of course, you see all the lies he's writing and the things that he's trying to do. I'm sure there's a lot of things that were done that are not captured by Scripture. But nonetheless, Nehemiah is trying to appeal, and he does appeal to the Jews in the history and using the family units. So when he did that, let's read what it says that he did in chapter 2 there, 12 through 16. Then I rose in the night, I and a few men with me. I told no one what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor was there any animal with me except the one on which I rode. And I went out by night through the valley gate to the serpent well and the refuge gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem which were broken down, and its gates which were burned with fire. Then I went on to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal under me to pass. So I went up in the night by the valley and viewed the wall. Then I turned back and entered by the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I had done. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or the others who did the work. You think maybe they would try to have discouraged him from going and surveying if he would have shared it? He kept it to himself for a little while before he told what he was going to do. Let's go to chapter 3. This is a long reading here, but if somebody else would like to read, that'll be fine. So we look at the builders of the wall, beginning with verse 1. Then Eliashib, the high priest, arose with his brothers, the priests, and built the sheep gate. They consecrated and installed its doors. They consecrated the wall to the tower of the hundred and the tower of Hananel. And next to him, the men of Jericho built. And next to them, Zakur, the son of Imri, built. Now the sons of, I'm going to booger up every one of these names, so just bear with me. Now the sons of Hassenaah built the fish gate. They laid its beams and installed its doors with its bolts and bars. Next to them were Miramoth, the son of Uriah, the son of Hakkoz, made repairs. And next to him, Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, and the son of, I'm going to let that one go, made repairs. And next to him, Zadok, and the son of, that almost looks like banana, but I know it's not, son of Bana, also made repairs. Moreover, next to him, the Kohites made repairs, but their nobles did not support the work of the masters. That's important to note. That'll come up again later. Now Jehoiada, the son of, and let's let them continue on. They repaired the ancient gate. They laid its beams and installed its doors with its bolts and its bars. Next to them, you see who that was. The men of Gibeah of Mizpah also made repairs for the official seat of the governor of the province beyond the Euphrates River. Next to him, Uzziel, the son of, and you got the rest, the goldsmiths made repairs, and next to him, one of the perfumers made repairs, and they restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. And next to them, the son of Hur, the official of the district of Jerusalem, made repairs. It's interesting, you got some good officials and people with trades skills that are pitching in. Next to them, repairs were made opposite, this guy made it opposite of his house. Let's see here. I want to catch the sections. Another section of the Tower of Furnaces. Next to them, verse 12, the official of half the district of Jerusalem made repairs, he and his daughters. And then we have people repairing the Valley Gate. They built it and installed its doors with its bolts and its bars, and 1,000 cubits of the wall to the Dung Gate. And so we continue all the way down without reading everything all the way to verse 32, but you see repairs are being made constantly. And if you can handle all the names that are being thrown in here, it was important that their names were recorded, whether we could read them or pronounce them or not. That's not the point, but they were part of those who were building. Their name, it was important that their names were put down. And then you have the mention of the various gates. Have you noticed these gates being named? You have a fountain gate. Let's go on down here.
Valley Gate.
Yeah, the Valley Gate,
Sheep gate?
Sheep Gate. That was the first one they started on. Fish Gate.
The Dung Gate.
That's important.
Yeah.
Dung Gate. Verse 26, we have Watergate. It already existed before we ever got to our day of time. Let's see.
The Gate of the Fountain.
Yeah. Fountain Gate. Horse Gate, verse 28. You got the East Gate. Had an inspection gate. And when you get down to verse 32, they come all the way around back to the sheep gate. They went all the way around it. Now, I've been looking at different maps and there's a few of them that I've found that would probably be a good depiction of that time. I'll insert that for next Sunday.
There's the Zion gate.
Huh?
There's the Zion gate at Jerusalem. That's where the Israeli forces in 1967 entered to recapture the city.
Was that a gate that was existing in Nehemiah's day?
I don't know. I just know it was called the Zion gate, and it's full of bullet marks. Just covered in bullet marks. Yeah, and the gates have changed, the walls have changed. And so what I would focus on next week is the
the various meanings behind the various gates that when they were built. Some of them are just, they make good sense. You can come to your own conclusion.
I wonder what you had to do to get assigned to that dung gate.
Well, it says that they built next to where they were living, closest to it. So I guess if you lived in the bad district, and of course, the gate itself represented, obviously, going to the city dump.
Well,
That's what it sounds like.
The droppings from the animals out.
Yeah.
The sheep gates where they put them in, and that's where they.
It just goes to show you though what can be done when people get a large group of people that are all working there. Not a big fan of theirs, but the Mormons can come in and build a church for their race. Amazing how fast and organized. I went to Brazil on a mission trip with the Southern Baptists back when they built their chapels. Southern Baptists have got the best system of any group I've ever been with, in any denomination. They never send a group of people without 3 or 4 experienced leaders. And they never go in, let me rephrase that, they always go in prepared. They know how many blocks it takes, how many nails, and how many bolts, and how much lumber. They had it down to a science. They go in a week. We started on Monday morning, all we had was a bunch of blocks and a slab. And we had a bunch of people from North Cleveland Baptist and a church in Cookville, Baptist Church in Cookville. And on Friday night, they were painting the sign over the door, and they had 300 or 400 people in a 50-person chapel. People hanging in the windows. Sound system was there. Pews were built, pulpit was built. Blocks were laid, roof was on. When a bunch of people will get their mind in the right direction, it's pretty hard to stop. And this might have been the inspiration for a lot of things, and it's happened since then. In October 1944, this country was making an airplane every 5 minutes, 24/7. That's pretty hard to keep up with.
And it shows you the power of a vision. The need to address, yeah. It's amazing what can happen when people put their mind to work.
It's amazing what God can do when no one cares who gets the credit.
That was profound.
Yeah, I don't think I would, I could imagine right now with Ezra writing this stuff down. Hey, I know I worked on the dung gate, but you can just leave me out if you want. I don't want credit for that one. Yeah, we've seen some amazing things take place where people have come together to do things. Like you was talking about, I've watched many times I'm amazed at the Amish, how they build, how they come together and just, and sometimes, oh, this building, we got this build, let's move it. They all grab, I've seen them pick up a structure and move it just by manpower. And I thought, wow, that's amazing.
I want to share with you one story. I've got many about how God stepped in. My friend Jeff Newtonbaum was to build a church in the Galapagos Islands. Do you know where that is? Do you know the significance of that? That's where Darwin gave his theory on evolution, because there's so many species there. Anyway, Jeff was supposed to build a church there. They had no sand, and they could get no sand. The people that he was building the church for, Church of God, and they went out to the site where they was going to build the church, and they just started to dig a footer. And when they started digging, they discovered there was a pile of sand that had been there for years under the ground. They took all that sand out, and it was just enough to complete the building. God shows up, and I can tell you a lot more of
Yeah.
stories, but God shows up when you're willing to do what He wants you to do.
Yeah, that's true. Anyone else have a, yes, Brother Al?
I've only visited Jerusalem once, but one of the unforgettable things was that the same devil that motivated these people against the Jews is still at work. Where Christ, in his return, is to go through the city gate and into the city, the Muslims have blocked that gate and put a graveyard in front of it to keep Jesus from going through the gate. Same devil, little different bunch, same obstacles, same ideas.
And the funny thing is, they don't realize when you're working against God as though
Yeah, you can do.
you can actually achieve it. You can achieve it. That's just so.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah, their hearts need it, don't they? Anyone else? Yeah, that was a good comment. Well, let's move on to our prayer requests. And